Thank you to my channel members and Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also support me by buying a deck tech on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. More info in the video description. Hello everyone! I've been really enjoying my time on stream and helping people with deck building, but I understand that streams are tough to catch from time to time, so I decided to bring some of that here to the main channel. This also allows me to be a lot more structured with my thoughts and explain what I'm thinking when I'm trying to fix a deck that doesn't quite work how its creator wanted it to. There's timestamps for these decks today in the video description if you want to hop to one in particular. Starting with Shiko, Paragon of the Way, Blink Control. Yours Best sent this one in saying, I've been having trouble keeping up in cards and finding the winning combo, Twin Flame and Dual Caster Mage. This I can certainly help with. For viewers that don't know, Shiko's kind of like if Snapcaster and Sun Titan had a baby. What I mean to say is that this dragon can easily bring back cheap spells easily like Snapcaster, or cheap permanents, albeit not lands, like Sun Titan. The only restriction Yours Best put on us here is to have no cards above $20, which I can happily oblige here. So, your main issue is finding a win, and I can see why. The deck list here runs a few tutors, and in fact, most of them are incredible for their job. I love Muddle the Mixture, which can grab Twin Flame, Mystical Tutor, which can grab most of the deck, and Solve the Equation, which while more costly can go ham if Shiko gets to copy it, since it deposits the card directly into the hand. There is one that gives me pause though. Drift of Phantasms, which I can assume is meant to grab Soul Herder, Gilrain, or Abuelo to start flickering Shiko. The problem is that this card is super outclassed as far as 3-mana tutors go. I would much prefer this tutor be on an Enters effect here, so you can use it with Shiko or flicker it. This will be our first cut for that reason. The next cut will be Cloud Shift and Essence Flux. Generally speaking, I'm really down on cards that only flicker if they're inherent 2-for-1s like Ephemerate or Momentary Blink are. Cloud Shift is sadly just one of those cards that have been power crept unless you're doing some silly stuff trying to steal creatures with it, since it's one of the only flickers that returns it under your control specifically, instead of its owner's. Next up on the chopping block is Propaganda and Ghostly Prison. Now these cards can be fine, but the deck has far more synergistic options at its disposal when it comes to protective flourishes. What I especially don't like about Ghostly and Propaganda is their inability to stop burn damage or drain effects as well as combo wins, which we know are all too prevalent. Besides, a 4/5 Vigilant Flying Dragon in the command zone already does wonders for blocking. My final cuts here will be directed at some cards that have less than stellar rates for their cost, mostly looking at Unwind, which can't be recurred off Shiko like Supreme Will and You Find the Villain's Lair can. Cool choices, by the way. I'm also quite off Will of the Jeskai, if you can believe it. I think the card is just far better off in Storm if you're only using the Windfall mode effectively, which is all the deck is doing. The Commander and the Flickering allows us to touch the graveyard just fine without it. Basically, the ceiling isn't high on this card. The same as well goes for Gilrain. She's too slow, having to wait to untap with her. But don't worry, we won't be missing her. It's time then to add a pretty iconically Elk package of cards to help the inconsistency of this deck. Spellseeker, Step Through, Archaeomancer, and Recruiter of the Guard. With Ephemerate that's already in the list, these 4 cards harmonize with one another perfectly. I've already explained it a few times on the channel before, but Step Through allows you to Wizard Cycle for Archaeomancer, which then allows you to return it to your hand, to then Wizard Cycle for Spellseeker, which lets you grab Ephemerate. What is different in this deck, though, is that then with the first Ephemerate, target Spellseeker, you can grab Twin Flame, and then with the rebound, target Archaeomancer to retrieve the Step Through to then cycle for the Dual Caster Mage. That's right, in this shell, Step Through is actually a 1-card kill combo. The story is much the same with Recruiter of the Guard. It can grab Soul Herder or Abuelo, and then all it takes is 2 flickers to retrieve the Dual Caster Mage and the Spellseeker, since they both have 2 or less toughness. In fact, even without the combo, it can just grab any creature in the deck. We still have 4 slots left, so let's fill them. Repel the Abominable is my next choice. A fog that you can tutor off either Spellseeker or Muddle the Mixture that can be looped by Archaeomancer Ephemerate or Archaeomancer Soul Herder. It's better and worse than a normal fog in some ways. If you run into Kyler or Saskia, you're screwed. But on the other hand, it stops non-combat damage like Perforos. Angel's Song is a good alternative if you find yourself on the receiving end of a human beatdown frequently, but I have reason to believe that Impact Tremors will be more prevalent than that. The last 3 slots I recommend are going to go towards filling out the deck's lackluster lands. The deck has a low curve and can draw cards well, but I would be a lot more comfortable if this deck hovered closer to 38 or 39 lands instead of 37. Because of this, I'm going to recommend Pinnacle Monk, which is effectively another Archaeomancer, but it has a land on the back, and multi-format all-star Lorien Revealed, which is a 1-mana land cycler that can also be used to draw cards later in the game. With that final deck slot of ours, I'm going to recommend another sweeper to flesh out the 2 you already have. Specifically, I'm going to recommend Evacuation. With all the ETBs, you don't particularly mind bouncing all your own objects, and the instant speed nature of the effect allows you to harvest maximum value before needing to deploy it. If they don't attack you, good. No need to press the button. You get to hold up your other interaction instead. With enough mana, you can actually loop Evacuation with an Archaeomancer in the late game too, much like you can with Time Wipe, which the deck already runs. If I may offer one final 1-for-1 swap as well, the Ancestral Vision in the list is cute synergy, but See the Truth is just way easier to cast when it gets in hand, unlike Vision. In the end, this whole deck started at $107 and could never consistently find its combo win. The damage? It cost a whole $15 more, but now all roads lead to Rome, ensuring that you'll have a consistent game plan with plenty of lands to cast your spells and on-theme interaction to boot. Thanks for sending your deck in. Next up is Chimera's interesting Rograkh pair with Kediss Emberclaw Familiar. She's having issues with consistency, card advantage, game closing, and lands. Basically everything. Which is a shame because I find this partner pairing rather inspired. Looking at the list though, it's not hard to see where things are going wrong. Aki Warpaint, Fervor of the Bitten, Wheels, and some subpar equipment. We can work with this. I think first and foremost is understanding the fact that your commanders are a total of 2 mana to deploy. In my vision of how to build this deck well, you surprise the table by dropping Kediss and Rograkh in the same turn, giving them haste, then buffing Rograkh to high hell and killing your opponents all in one go. I personally think the best way to go about this is Infect, since you'll only need 10 damage, and Kediss spreads the damage from your actual commander to your opponents. But even if you don't want to add an Infect damage because it can be controversial, there's still plenty that can be done to amplify this sneak attack style game plan. Firstly, Menace, First Strike, and Trample are insane words to have on a commander. We don't need to be packing cheap evasive equipment. If we make Rograkh big enough, Rograkh will get through. So I cut a few of those evasion granting equipment, cheap ores that were basically only there to pump stats, and a few value generators over time like Chandra, Valakut Exploration, Outpost Siege, Blood Mist, and Count on Luck, because we're here for a violent time, not a long time. I also cut Magus of the Wheel and Wheel of Misfortune because although it lets you see a lot of cardboard quick, it also refuels your opponents. I also cut Torbrain here because while he's a broken card, adding 2 to the initial Rograkh hit and 4 to the Kediss punch isn't really anything to call home about. And also at this time, I cut the combo of Colossus Hammer and Magnetic Theft because of how unreliable it is to pull off. This gives us 20 slots to work with. So here we go. My first 5 additions are dedicated to Impulse Draw. Ren's Resolve, Reckless Impulse, Inspired Tinkering, and Embrace the Unknown. Your curve ends with 1 6-drop. This deck is the poster child for Impulse Draw like this. Don't let Inspired Tinkering fool you either. It's effectively 2 mana because of the treasure rebate, and it digs 1 extra card deeper than either of the 2 mana impulses. Some might notice that was only 4 impulse cards, and that's because the 5th is Galvanic Relay, which is special. Because if you get stifled on your pop-off turn, the relay here means that you can draw enough cards to try again next turn. Another Storm card I'll be including is Haze of Rage, which will turbo buff Rograkh, especially with a good Jessica's Will or Mana Geyser turn. I'm also going to be adding Ruby Medallion to the deck, which of course is just a good card, but it's important to notice, like I insinuated with the last few additions, that dropping the commanders for 2 mana and then buffing them to high hell is very much like a Storm turn, so mana during that turn is crucial. Next are the additions of a few haste enables I consider far better than the Ring of Colonia I cut. Lava Spur Boots, Detective's Phoenix, and Bitter Reunion. Detective's Phoenix is actually probably going to be the best card in your deck. Because of this, I decided to put in an Oliphant to help feed its collect evidence, though I will also include Faithless Looting and Will of the Jeskai as well, even though your deck already packs quite a few ways to discard cards already. Will of the Jeskai is also a good card for the aforementioned storm lines, allowing you to pop off even if someone's halted you before. In fact, I'll be including a Past in Flames for a very similar reason. With these additions, it's important to keep the last 4 additions instant and sorcery based. My first choice is Blazing Crescendo, which gives a pretty fearsome buff, but also cycles itself. Teamer Battle Rage, which can give double strike even though the trample's redundant. Dreadmaw's Ire, Sazakap's Brew, which has fun Detectives Phoenix implications, Fist of Flame, Reckless Charge, Samet Sprint, and Uncaged Fury. Of course, with all this combat trickery, is it any wonder that I'm going to steal from Standard and go ahead and make the 1-for-1 swap of Leyline Binding over Mithril Coat? The coat's fine, don't get me wrong, but it's only good in games where you're losing, where the Past in Flames effects will serve you way better. So why not throw a card in that can actually close out the game instead? And with all that, not only do we lower the cost of this deck by about $60, but we made it a lot more resilient by going in on combat tricks and Leyline of Resonance and Storm-like graveyard synergies, giving you outs to games you'd otherwise lose to gassing out. One final note I want to mention is that Wheels could be good inclusions if you wanted to go up on Underworld Breach, since you'd be able to combo them with Mana Geyser, but it's up to you if you want to do an infinite adjacent play like that. Thanks for submitting your deck. Lastly, we have a classic commander here from Nykthos Shrine to Me. They said that they feel like the deck requires too much setup, and when they play it, it mostly just ends up treading water, trying not to die, instead of actually doing anything interesting. The only thing they mention is that they want to keep Rancor and Zoyoa Lava Tongue around. So let's take a peek at what to cut first. Obviously, we're going to have to start with Heartstone. This card is symmetrical, and the fact that I've seen it blown up in so many people's faces means we're ditching it here. Next, we're going to look at the cards that you are running that are cute, but not good. As in, they have some fun gameplay implications with the Shattergang Bros, but they actually don't move the game forward, leading to that treading water, coughing baby issue you identified. Solemn Simulacrum when you're in green, Nimblewright Schematic, Ichor Wellspring, Spiteful Hexmage, Kibo, and the all-too-expensive Thieving Amalgam. I can appreciate what you're trying to do with Illusionist Bracers, Siege Gang Lieutenant, and Flare of Duplication, but I feel these cards are too expensive for someone trying to brawl in bracket 3. Let's turn our eyes to what can be added to the deck to help highlight the commander despite its expensive activated abilities then. I unironically like that you've already included Tergrid. She might even, dare I say it, feel fair and justified here. Korvold and Mayhem Devil are another two bangers, but I feel like you're really missing out by not including Mazarek Kral Death Priest, who will make your board absurdly huge. I would feel bad not mentioning Evolution Witness as well, who can combine with each Mazarek trigger to let you return a permanent from your graveyard to your hand. Combine this with a Spore Frog, and you needn't worry about treading water anymore. You can just sit pretty, knowing that you're safe from the scariest player every turn rotation. To help make the Shattergang Brothers more tolerable to activate as well, and to help out Tergrid to only steal the best of things, I'm not only going to add Redshift, which is a turbo mana dork for the commander, and a great complementary card to Agatha, but also Culling Ritual, which will not only kill all the tokens and lackluster theft effects your opponents will want to sacrifice first, but it will also give you plenty of mana to deploy things, then sacrifice them to the Shattergang Brothers. With your already existing inclusion of Attrition, Mean, Mayhem Devil, and Blood Artist, I'm going to steal some tech for my Judith deck and offer up a piece of sack fodder in Forsaken Miner. He also works well with the Bajuku Bog and White of the Reliquary you have in your deck, though I'm going to recommend Bloodghast to also go along with the white. Your deck, with its spread of types to sack with the Shattergang Brothers, is also perfectly positioned to use Delirium cards. I highly recommend Unholy Heat, Traverse the Uvenwald, Shifting Woodland, and Omnivorous Flytrap, the last of which combos really well with the Evolution Witness that was added. If you wanted to add 13 mana Emrakul, a way to recast her every turn like Temur Sabertooth or Oversold Cemetery in a sack outlet, and an Urza's Saga Gerard's Hourglass Pennant package to Mindslaver lock someone in Jund, don't let me stop you. I'll just let you figure that one out though, as I feel like it isn't required for the deck. And with that, let me know down in the comments below, would you want this to be a series? Because I had a ton of fun making this. Feedback is also welcome. Was 3 decks too many? Just right? If you want to get in on it in the future, by the way, join the Discord, link in the description. That's where I announced this one. Speaking of the Discord, if you like this video, that's a great place to join to get notified for when I go live and do this exact thing on stream. Thanks for watching, and thanks all 3 participants in today's video for submitting their decks. Until next time, bye!